that it's really going to be a great game, at least starting us off here. And we will be looking at the draft here now as we get everything set up here. We do have Wukong as the first ban on the blue side, followed up by the set. He says, no way.
Not having that in the bot lane, no sir. And Wukong also a super strong champion, not too bad in both the jungle, the AD, or the top lane role. Even in the mid lane, you could possibly flex that across all those three roles. Super good champion for team fighting. The laning phase, not super strong, but accessible at minimum for most people. So definitely a solid ban, just making sure they take away that meta champion. The Tryndamere taken away.
They're taking away all the good picks, Rebel. Why?
What did I do? Why would I do this?
I
gave the information away.
Caster curse is real. Zach be taken off the table, though. Very flexible pick. Can't take it in the top lane. Can't take it in the jungle. Can be very strong as well. Gonna have to see what they want to go with in that regard. I am liking the fact that they really are thinking through these bans, and you can see that they have put some research into it at least.
Yeah. Also, Zach is flexible because he's made a goo. I thought that's what you were going to go with.
You know. I should have. You got
maybe could have taken the low hanging fruit there. Now the Lee Sin taken off as well. That playmaking jungler, making sure no comfort comes through from the side of Princeton. They really target banned a couple of these champions away to make sure that they had themselves on the front footing in game number 1 on the side of Stanford.
Yeah, for sure. And Lee Sin coming off the board, and Aurelia for that matter, taking off some carry champions, but a big focus on the jungle. Obviously, we've seen Wukong take a big priority in the jungle. He is very strong in that position, but really, really heavy focus on jungle for this first game.
Yeah. The Anadonis ban of the Aurelia is pretty big because that's one of his better champions. He plays more top lane than mid lane, so the Aurelia definitely flexible between the two. Not shocking to see that one come through. With the set off the table, we get the very standard Misfortune first pick overall.
You're not going to see anything different, I feel like. She's become such a staple. And honestly, it surprises me she hasn't been nerfed to the ground yet, as Riot usually does. Fiora coming out, though, gets some spice with the first pick on red side, at least. And then it's looking like a Jarvan hover here, which could be a very lethal combo.
Yeah, the I would claim to be the meta Tryndamere is the Fiora. Does really well in the some matchups in the laning phase. Isn't always the strongest. Will have to scale up a little bit, get a couple of items before she starts tearing through people. But once she gets to those item breakpoints, these towers are going to get melted very quickly. Plays similar to a Tryndamere in that regard. The Jarvan, great for team fighting. Also taking that away from the Misfortune to set up what I call the instant team fight win. Because of course, Cataclysm, bullet time. You're going to lose that matchup most of the time if you're not burning flashes.
Yeah, for sure. Now, the Trundle locked in is a bit peculiar. Obviously, not the tankiest members on the other side, but hey, can still be very strong. We see so many times the pillar just comes clutch around those objectives. Nautilus going to follow that pickup on the blue side. Then Leona was the lock-in on the red side.
That was. The Leona has been seen as a counterpick to the Nautilus for about half a year since in the preseason when they became very meta, very standard in that bottom lane. And I've seen the matchup go and kind of flip-flop sometimes, but certainly the Leona should have some engage potential into this bottom lane. The Trundle, as you said, not into the most tanky team, but late game, if Jarvan opts to not go for the Warrior, wants to go into something like the Cinderhulk, the Black Cleaver, and then full tank, Trundle is going to be a great way to not only stop him with that pillar, but also to take away a lot of those stats and turn him into a very squishy Jarvan.
Yeah, and I definitely expect some ADC bans or maybe some mid bans coming out here because at least on the blue side, because you are missing those key pieces. You do see the Aurelion Soul taken out, as you were pointing out before. I swear, you just cast a curse the whole draft here. Mordekaiser and Silas taken out on the red side, though, so some very, very strong picks as well. And seriously, meta picks being taken off the board for this draft.
And that they are, making sure there's none of those the strong bruisers coming through the Silas or the Mordekaiser for the AP mid laner. Again, Adonis can play the Silas and the Mord because he plays more top lane, and they're things that can be flexed from top to mid. So they're taking away a lot of that comfort for Adonis here, making sure that's not his wheelhouse.
Yeah, for sure. And Gangplank was that last ban on the blue side, so not wanting the crit plank with the barrels in there, as it looks like the ADC is going to be locked in here. It's going to be an Ezreal to pair with the Leona.
Yeah, so the thing is Deathlock plays a lot more support than I've seen him play AD. So the few ADCs I saw him play were the Ezreal and the Kai'Sa. Not shocking that they want a little more protection. Does well when the Jarvan throws the Cataclysm down because you basically have a barrel in which to shoot fish. as the Ezreal Dubravka might go. But the Ezreal certainly feels pretty solid here. The Leona pairing, not phenomenal, but you can hard engage with the Ezreal in the laning phase in the right matchup. We
Ooh.
get a Xerath. Let's
I
go.
love it. I love it. We get to see something a little bit different here. Going to be the Xerath in the mid lane. Going to be able to use that Rite of Arcane as artillery fire. And going to have to see what the last pick is going to be here. Honestly, the Leona Ezreal combo is a little bit interesting to me. Not the most synergistic, but after you get that, especially if you go lethal tempo Ezreal, once you get that proc and Leona CCing them, I mean, they die almost instantly. Aatrox gonna be the pickup here, going into that top lane against that Fiora.
Yeah, not too bad. This is a matchup that has been like late game Fiora favored, early game Aatrox favored for a while. Now that was also well before the changes to Aatrox came in, or at least the nerfs to Aatrox came in. So I'm not sure exactly how the lane plays out anymore since Aatrox has more power in the later stages. I would have to say it plays pretty much the same way. Aatrox wants to team fight, doesn't want to be out in the 1v1 for very long against the Fiora because she probably beats him down pretty hard. But certainly in those team fights will provide a lot with the Qs, the W, and all the sustain he's got for himself.
Yeah, I'm honestly a little scared for an Adonis. The Ahri is going to be pretty scary. That was the last pickup on the red side. It does have a lot of strength in the mid lane, but a lot of strength in the roaming as well. And we know how important that can be, especially around the objectives in the river areas. For Ahri to get rolling, you need to get a little bit of gold in your pockets, and that's definitely the way to do it. But teams are set up. We have everything in their places, at least for the most part. Now, where do you really think that these junglers are going to want to focus for these teams?
So if you're on the side of 99 toxicity, I think aggressing into Jarvan, trying to get him caught off guard is a great place to be. I love Trundle into 80 picks. I preach this pretty much every time I see it. Because of the Q drain on his ability coming through, 80 junglers do not stand a chance in the early 1v1, especially when you've got your W up and you have that attack speed buff. You can't touch a Trundle early on. So aggress into the Jarvan, make sure he can't get into the lanes. Another way to go is early pillar usage. Is that level 2, level 3 gank into the mid lane to burn Ahri's flash would mean the aggression can't come through, especially with a barrier or a cleanse coming through from Xerath. You would buy a lot of space for the Xerath to free farm. Now on the other side, if you're Bopo King, your bottom lane shouldn't be playing super, super aggressive unless they're getting definitive nice engages onto Misfortune and not onto Nautilus. If you're the Jarvan, get Fiora ahead. If Fiora gets to 1-2 items, some of that sustain, maybe even Blade of the Rune King, before Aatrox gets to any of the armor necessary to sustain against that, you're going to be at a bad place. This Fiora is going to run over the opposition in this particular game because the 4-1 strategy with Jarvan and Leona makes it so hard for the Xerath, the Trundle, the Misfortune to feel safe with all the long-range engage they've got.
Yeah, we're definitely going to have to keep our eyes on that top lane matchup because it is going to be one of skill and one that can really influence the rest of the map at least. I am kind of looking at this Trundle. I want to see the effects of the Trundle in the game because I do tend to like the Jarvan a little bit more than the Trundle, especially in a non-tanky matchup altogether. But really, really interested to see how these teams come together and really finish this first game out for us and start their way into this tournament. But with that being said, we're going to send it to a small little break while we get through the spectator delay. Do not go anywhere because we have game number 1 coming right at you after the break.
Woke up, told myself to push and never stop. I've been stressed out, watching both these hands around the clock. With my eyes wide, trying to get the panorama shot. Whole world getting blurry to me, answers getting lost. So I watch my back and keep it moving to the front. And remember that the world's yours, do it how you want. You've been waiting here for too long, think it's time for you to move on. Realize that there's real lies in these real times to be strong.
I've been waiting all my life, and it was right before my eyes. Watching all this time fly
but it's hard to have the patience. Watching time fly by might be the hardest thing I have to do in life. Frustrated that I ain't where I want to be yet, but I know that I'ma make it if I chase that check. Yes.
Cause I done seen the time go by for too many years now when the stars were aligned. Cause I done seen the time go by. Yeah, I done seen the time go by.
I've been waiting all my life, and it was right before my eyes. Watching all this time slip by, now I realize I've been waiting all my life, and it was right before my eyes. Watching all this time slip by, now I realize. You know I've been waiting, 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 you know I've been waiting.
Welcome to Summoner's Rift.
All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are on to the Rift here. We have Stanford on the blue side with Saksu in the top lane. We have Toxicity in the jungle, Unadonis in the mid lane, Fiddix and Carlton Danks rounding out the bot lane.
And on the red side, we have Princeton's team. We have Danyu in the top lane, Bopo Kipo in the jungle, Yanchek in the mid lane, Deathlock in the ADC role, and Alex Dips rounding that out at support.
Yeah, no level 1s here, unfortunately. Don't get any spiciness to start it off, but maybe that means we get more spice in the laning phase, as we do see the junglers starting off their respective blue buffs here.
Not shocking to see. One thing to know is sometimes Trundle does like to start the red buff rather than anything else, which means if he's wanting the red more than anything, either A, he's planning to take an entire blue side clear and go for a gank into the mid lane. Again, I think that pillar is pretty smart. Could go top lane as well, potentially. But specifically, having the red buff when he wants to get ganks off a little bit later into the laning phase after everything's said and done is really nice. Again, if he gets a single auto off and gets that slow, you're going to force a flash because of how powerful he is.
Yeah, for sure. And I wanted to kind of take a look at the keystones here. You have press the attack on the Trundle, so definitely looking for that little bit of burst damage. The Glacial Augment on the Ahri, we've all seen it before. It's very, very annoying. That amount of slow is just crazy, especially going up against the Xerath, who is not the most mobile champion. That is going to be a very strong power point for Yacheng.
That's the case. Now, earlier on, we had seen that Toxicity threw a ward down right above the Raptor Pit to spot out the pathing, and he knew the blue hadn't been started. So now, the Trundle actually walks away with the red buff of...
Oh, no. Saksu, though, getting traded heavily, but Toxicity has arrived. We're going to have to see. Danyu, can you get out? Do you have the fancy feet? It's going to be the Chomp first. The Pillar comes out afterwards. Here's the counter game for Bopo Kipo, but the first blood goes over to Toxicity. Exactly the player we were saying to keep our eyes on. Takes up the first amount of gold in the game from a kill.
I normally wouldn't expect that to come through just because the Jarvan, I think, got a little greedy with his pathing. He went a full blue side clear and then tried to go contest for his red buff instead of going blue to red and taking his multi-target camps. Because of that, it cost the red buff for him, but also no respect for Danyu on the top side, extending too far trying to get the kill against Saksu and put himself in a terrible position to get away from this Trundle.
Saksu is going to be in some serious trouble. That's going to be a kill. Flash coming out from Saksu, but it doesn't matter. Danyu flashing the mastery, able to pick up that kill in the top lane.
But Trundle's on his way back up to the top lane. Let's see if we can get another one.
But he's also got Bopo Kipo there as well. Gonna have to see if he's able to pillar coming out. TP is very toxicity. He's gonna have to run away. Flag and drag does connect. The sweet spots are there, but it's not enough to save his jungler, as Bopo Kipo is going to be falling afterwards. Soxo is now in a 1v1 against Danu again, and it is not looking good for him. That's a double kill for the Fiora, and so much gold into the pocket of Danu.
That's not the early game you want if you're on the side of Stanford. Danu is, in my opinion, one of the biggest win conditions you've got on the side of Princeton, and giving him 3 kills this early into the game is a terrible place to be. Not to mention this red buff got reset onto Danu, so he's got a red buff for the early laning phase. So all of the early game that could have been owned by Aatrox in the right situation, now gone. 3 kills, armor, and a red buff is too much to deal with.
Yeah, and here in the jungle, it's going to be Carlton Danks who goes down. The roam was not there from the respective blue side, mid, and bot laners, as Toxicity is going to have to flash and get out, and Unadonis as well. That's a lot of summoners burned, and a little bit of miscommunication on the side of Stanford.
That it was. Feels pretty bad. Collapsing into the river here. They don't have complete, or they have wave pushing in the mid lane at minimum, so they don't sacrifice much there, but they end up losing the life of their support, and a lot of the health bars got knocked down pretty far too. This early fighting not really going the way of Stanford, the way that you would expect it to. Maybe you just need to take a step back here, take a breath of fresh air for just 1 second, try to pull themselves back into this one, because right now their early game's not looking so hot.
Yeah, it's definitely in favor of Princeton here starting out. Very close, though, early on in the game, not even 5 minutes, although Soxo has to get out of there. He's taking a very rough angle there. I love it. We just have the top laners on each other's side of the map. No big deal. I am a big fan of Aatrox, actually, and it's a little sad to see going down this early against the Fiora, because that means you never really have that leg up, and you have to get a little bit more defensive, I feel like.
The best you can do is, again, team fighting, I think, from Aatrox is insanely strong compared to a Fiora. Not that Fiora is weak when it comes to team fighting, just that Aatrox has big AoE knockups. You have a couple of CC moves, great sustain. Fiora is more of that diver, trying to get into the backline, get some damage down with the ultimate, things of that sort. So a little harder to access without a TP or without a really good flanking angle. So for that strength, you do have Soxo's late game, but the split push is going to be all he focus on for Danu. He has the ult here.
Danu using the chain to pop the riposte. What a beast. As he's looking to pick up the kill, that's going to be Danu going on a rampage. Bopo Kipo has to get out from the Trundle, but now it's going to be Trundle v Fiora. Danu might be a little bit in trouble here. He does have support by Unadonis from the mid lane. Does look like they might be able to pick this up. Chomp goes down, but the flag and drag is perfectly timed. Toxicity is going to have to run away. Xerath is here. The Chomp finally comes down, shut down going over to Toxicity, and then Unadonis picks up the kill on Bopo Kipo.
Yeah, good roam there from Unadonis. He's been able to push in the Ahri pretty consistently across all of his laning phase, because that's kind of the idea behind playing a siege mage like this. You push out the wave, and then you can impact the rest of the map. Usually not a ton of roaming. And Unadonis was level 5 when he left, got the level 6, ends up getting the double or another kill there. So a little bit more gold back in their pockets here.
Yeah, here in the engage, though, Zenith Blade is going to connect onto Carlton Danks, as Fidix is just clocking away a death block down there. Have to be careful of that angle there, as Misfortune does put down some hurt if you let her.
That's the case, certainly. The Ezreal has opted also for the Conqueror rune, so he's going to have to play a little bit further back, trying to stack that rune up against the Aatrox, the Trundle, the Nautilus when they're in his face, as opposed to something like Lethal Tempo, which would give him direct attack speed to auto attack. Like, it's an interesting trade-off. Just means that Deathlock might prioritize a little more attack speed early on in the game to make more damage happen, but certainly in the laning phase, it's not going to feel the same effects as before.
Yeah, you're definitely not going to have that extra attack speed that you would think of with the Lethal Tempo. Now, we do have a lane gang coming from Bopo Kipo. Carlton goes in, doesn't know he's there. That's going to be some trouble. Looking to get the Spider Knot, but not able to. Cataclysm comes down. Flash is in return for Fidix. In the top lane, Soxu's going to have to be really careful. He's about to get under tower by Danu, who wants the kill, doesn't care about the tower. Give me the blood. He's going to go down anyways. But that is a kill traded in the top lane.
Danu is relentless, man. He's on 50 CS. Opposition's only on 21. He's got 5 kills in this game. Yeah, he traded one over, but this Aatrox is never going to have a fun time in playing base.
The blast cone in is not going to be stolen either. Toxicity has to flash out there. or that would be his life. Flash coming out from, or actually the phase shift, sorry, from Deathlock. Fidix gonna be in some trouble here. Flag and drag is there. Zenith Blade gonna connect. That's the CC chain you are looking for, and they are able to pick up the kill on the enemy ADC.
Yeah, they're playing into some of the lane advantages rather well. Again, the Leona does pretty well into the Nautilus. You're seeing that come up, and again, Bobo Kipo's been in the side lanes pretty well, getting the Fiora, and now getting the Ezreal and Leona ahead. Taking control of the early Dragon is also super beneficial, and we haven't seen the impact from Toxicity quite yet. Again, I want to see him get out early and try to aggress against Bobo Kipo, but he hasn't been able to do so. He's been prioritizing farming with this Tiamat, but it's just not having the same kind of impact on the map that we see coming through from the Jarvan.
Yeah, and Princeton have Cam to play. It is 8-5. They have a decent gold lead here for themselves, looking to continue it with the Fiora doing so well in the top lane. And we unfortunately aren't going to get a Infernal Dragon or an Ocean Soul this time around. It is going to either be the Cloud Soul or the Mountain Soul, so nothing too extravagant in that region, but could help out these teams nonetheless.
And it might. Certainly will be helpful for either team to have a little bit of that, the shielding coming through from the Mountain Soul in some of the team fights that are going to come through. We see actually Jarvan and Trundle are both passing up towards the top side of the map. Might see action towards the Rift Herald or into the top lane yet again.
Yeah, might be able to get a gank here on Soxu. He has to be very, very careful because the range that Fiora has, as well as being ganked by the Flag and Drag for Bobo Kipo as we speak of the devil. And Soxu is trying his best to land these sweet spots. It's going to do a decent amount of damage, though. Toxicity is going to be here. Cataclysm goes in, not going to be able to pick up the kill on Soxu. Danyu really wants to proc the ultimate, but not going to be able to this time around, as Ride of the Arcane is launching the artillery for his team. Toxicity able to pick up that kill on Danyu in the top lane.
Yeah, that time the Fiora, he burnt the ultimate really quickly and got locked into the Cataclysm, unfortunately. I don't think the Jarvan was able to take it down, and so the Fiora got blocked off from accessing the Aatrox's vital points, which I think was the big part of that one. Also, Anadonis has not been pressured at all.
That's going to be the True Shot Barrage, not going to connect, but still Fidix goes down, as it's going to be a double kill on the bot lane here. The tower beautifully tanked by Alex Dips, as they are cleaning up here on the Rift. As beautiful snipe coming through, Anadonis showing he's got what it takes.
And Anadonis, I mean, like I said, I was saying this right as we talked about the top lane gank coming through. He's on a Xerath who's relatively immobile, but he's been doing such a good job completely trapping Yanchek into this laning phase and not letting him out at all. And this is where Toxicity can also start putting some force. Again, he didn't do anything early, but now putting pressure down. Oh!
Yeah, that's going to be a kill going over Toxicity, who is now on a killing spree and is really actually doing very well in this Trundle now. As in the top lane, Soxu needs to be very careful. Tower shot's a little bit too much for Danyu to go in. The stun connecting. Toxicity wants to go all in onto Yachenk, as that's going to be a very low health bar for Ahri. And we did see, oh my goodness, you got to be careful here. Ride of the Arcane is coming up here pretty soon. So that's definitely something to watch out for. Oh no, I thought he was going to get the snipe there. So we did see the Rift Herald used by Toxicity in the mid lane. Was able to get the charge off. Not going to be able to get the actual tower though. One plate remaining on that mid outer tower, but a good amount of damage done and a good amount of money gained from the plates.
Yeah, at the moment, right now, the side of Stanford has been trying to find a point of contest that they could use on the map. And originally, it was thought to be, I thought bot lane would have had some sort of play as long as the Trundle gets to the bottom lane. They could have aggressed in the jungle up against Bobo Kipo or tried to get the Aatrox rolling early. None of that really happened. Instead, it's been Anadonis that's been the early game pressure point, and they're going to be able to start roaming around. Look, that one turret plate left with that Rift Herald means once they break mid lane, they can start using the Xerath in much more convincing ways to get into the side lanes alongside Toxicity. Soxu has gotten himself back into a place. He's not going to be able to straight 1v1 on the Fiora, but certainly is capable of keeping the lane in a place where she's not just going to be able to take the tower outright. Same with the Misfortune and the Nautilus on the bottom side. So the more that these fights start to cluster together, now the bullet time comes in, the depth charge comes in on top of this super powerful Xerath.
Oh, depth charge going to land onto Alex Dips. Here comes Toxicity. The bullet time's going to go down, but not going to pick up any kills there. A lot of damage done onto Alex Dips, though. Flash was burned by the Leona, so maybe a return gank here in just a bit.
Yeah, I mean, that's what is it? It was Aftershock combined with the W, the Eclipse coming in there. So you're talking there was roughly 100 extra armor that you just gained from that. So it's tough to burn through that, even with one of the most powerful ultimates in the game. Difficult to burn that one through. So the Leona doesn't have the flash though, so that's at least part of the engagement is going to be disappeared. Priority on the Dragon coming through here too, but again, no bullet time for this fight.
Yeah, and the Solar Flare is actually going to land perfectly, and that's going to be Phoenix going down. Here's the ensuing team fight. Toxicity is going to try to run away. The damage from Unadonis is insane. Xerath is carrying. That's going to be almost a snipe onto the Ahri. And then in the top lane, we have Danyu going in on the Saksu. Nothing much has changed up here, as it is still Danyu putting in the pressure.
And what's crazy about this entire fight coming through is Phoenix and Carlton Danks. Oh, we're going to see. Oh, okay. Nothing crazy, but yeah, it looks like the Riposte is down there poking each other out all the time. What's crazy about this fight, though, is, again, the early right of the Arcane came out from the Xerath. I don't think it was necessary. I think he should have gone immediately. Probably
World pop, but Saksu's going to have to run away. That feels so bad. He popped everything, wanting to get the kill, and just gets shut down immediately.
Feels awful. Again, the Fiora is way too strong right now to be doing anything like that. Saksu has to be happy that this Fiora isn't just solo killing him under his tower over and over again because of the way that it's gone. And taking that 1v1 fight, wasn't able to get far enough away to prevent those vitals from going down. So the Fiora, great place to be right now. Of course, the other side, Adonis, super strong. Toxicity's looking super strong. As long as you're able to get Phoenix into a place where his ultimate's going to start doing damage, you still have a chance in this game, but you have to force Danyu out of a side lane. Otherwise, he's just going to start taking everything on the map.
Yeah, exactly. And being able to play the split push while still having the TP to join fights is going to be super crucial for this Fiora, especially with how much strength she's had in the side lanes already. And the amount of punishment she's been putting onto Saksu.
So we're going to see more than enough here with some pressure. Top side. You see the Fiora and the Jarvan collapsing towards top side. Second Rift Herald should be spawning here soon in the next couple of minutes, and that should be another point of contention for these teams. I don't know if a fight comes out.
So yeah, Solar Flare is going to connect there onto Carlton Danks, who is going to get burned down there. Yachenk able to pick up that kill for himself.
Ooh, Alex Dips a little too far out.
That's going to be a bit rough. Yeah, Alex Dips going in on the Toxicity there. Right of the Arcane is going to come down as well, trying to get the slow down to make sure they land it, but none of them are going to land. The last one does. Toxicity able to pick that one up.
Ooh,
Deathlock, flash forward, flash from Deathlock as well. Yeah, Toxicity is just all over the map.
That he is. He's able to make things happen, return some pressure on the bottom side. Unfortunately, the Misfortune lost the 1v1 against the Ezreal because of just how powerful he is at the moment. That's a rough place to be. They still will be able to push down this tower. That's just how strong Toxicity and Adonis are at the moment. They're putting a lot of work in to make sure that this Stanford squad has some chance.
Yeah, they really are. And able to take that tower very nicely. Able to get a little bit of gold for themselves. Saksu's still having some trouble up here, but might have some assistance by Carlton Danks as that stun is going to land. Danyu has to flash. Flash return, though. Carlton Danks not going to land the dredge line. Is going to use the depth charge. Here comes the snipe. That's going to be a kill going over. And the nice little emote spam. Or not emote spam. The wonderful little dance spam there from the Nautilus. Gotta love it. As they are feeling themselves still not in the kill lead, in the gold lead for themselves, but have to be careful of this Fiora for sure. They just shut her down, so they're going to go for the Rift Herald as they do have a nice bit of safety towards this top lane, but you still have to be very careful about those team fights.
Yeah, the team fight's going to be a struggle for the side of Stanford just because of the fact that, again, their constant DPS coming out of the Misfortune is insanely low. Only on the Essence Reaver and the Pickaxe at the moment versus a nearly completed Monomune and Trinity Force for the Ezreal, who's already going to be doing well in the DPS department. Not to mention you've got an AD Jarvan. I don't love the AD Jarvan. I know it's a little better against this Trundle, but...
Oh no, Fiddick's going to be in some trouble here. Actually, getting traded back down on. Here comes the TP, though. Fiora's going to join the fight. Toxicity is there. Just realized that the True Shot Barrage is invisible, as it is going to be Toxicity who gets cataclysmed to death. And Adonis trying to put down the poke on the other side. Danny needs to be very careful there, as you still do have Xerath doing so much. Solar Flare is going to land, though, and Adonis has to pop Cleanse and Flash to get out of there. Still almost picked up a kill on the backside, though.
This is the problem with the side of Stanford at the moment, is that Adonis does a ridiculous amount of damage. Toxicity is a good frontliner, but they can swap people out because it's so hard to hit these consistent skill shots every single time. If you can hit somebody for 40% of their health bar with your Q, but you gotta wait 6-7 seconds and you have to hit them every time, you don't have the consistent DPS that a ADC would bring. And so right now you're really reliant on Adonis hitting everything. I think he only got one of those right in the Arcane's hit in that last fight, and that's not enough. If he hits all 4, they might actually get a chance to turn that fight, but it's a lot of pressure to put onto this Xerath to hit all the skill shots to make sure the damage is there in team fights to take the win.
Yeah, it definitely is, and gonna have to step up if you want to hit those skill shots. But we do see the dragon coming up in about 10 seconds, and it is going to be the Mountain Soul this time. So both teams pretty happy with that, at least get that extra shielding for themselves. But we'll have to see who wants to start it off, as Toxicity is sitting in the mid lane. You do have a little bit more of a presence there from the Jarvan around the pit. They're waiting for a bush fight here, but it's going to be a 4v5, 5v5 now with Ezreal joining, but the engage is already there. Alex Dips is going in, but the bullet time is going to go through as well. Tons of damage from the right of the Arcane. And Adonis is doing so much for his team, but on the backside, it's Deathlock the entire time, killing everybody. And that's going to be a triple kill for the Jarvan. It's going to be a dragon here for Princeton, and they are feeling it in this game.
I'm really terrified for the prospect coming through here of these team fights from Stanford. They're already relatively weak, and they don't need a challenge for a dragon. They still had about 10-15 minutes before the soul point had been under contention, where you need to actually fight to make sure that the Mountain Soul doesn't come through. And they're not in a point where they can fight. As you said in this one, Adonis does a lot of work. Toxicity stands there, does a lot of work himself. But again, the Trundle without a pure tank to grab isn't going to be massively tanky himself, even with some of the bulkier items in his inventory. And you have so much damage coming through from this Ezreal, from the Ori, even from Daniel and Bopo. What are you going to do? Adonis was back as far as he could be, putting out really good DPS, and he couldn't match the damage output from the side of Princeton. They just have too much for him to deal with.
Yeah, that definitely was. That team fight was a bit chaotic. You did see Fidix was right in the middle of everything. The Zenith Blade didn't land on him, so the bullet time went full time, but it just didn't do enough to get everybody down. Deathlock on the backside of that fight, just wiping everybody clean. And great team fight coming out from Princeton. Looking forward to more of them, but it is Stanford who has my eye now. You have to find a way into this game here now and find some picks, because these team fights are just not going your way.
And what's terrifying also is the fact that, like, when you look at this team, you don't even need the Fiora in the fights anymore. You can put her in a side lane, and that fight probably goes very similarly if the Fiora is not there, even with Bobo Kipo taking most of the damage on the front line, just because of how much you have behind the rest of the team. Don't even need the Fiora in the fight for any of that to succeed. Put her in a side lane, put her on the bottom side of the map, let her push away from the Baron, and what are they going to do? Put Aatrox, one of their better team-fighting frontliners, against her in that side lane where he probably loses? There's no chance there.
Yeah, there really isn't. The Rift Herald is going to be spawned in the jungle here by Toxicity. Probably a little bit of an emergency cast, looking to try and get the top lane at least with it. But Danu is right there to defend. We have seen the ADCs transition to the mid lane, have a dragon in about 3 minutes, as well as Baron is alive. I don't expect either team to really try and burn down Baron at this point, but you do see a lot of focus on this top lane with the Rift Herald.
Yeah, they let that one come through. I don't think they're really terrified of the Baron because, again, with Misfortune being so low, with Aatrox being so weak, right now you pretty much only have Trundle for consistent DPS against it, and he's not doing a ton because it's not like he went Blood Razor, Blade of the Rune King, anything like that. He's just a pure tank Trundle with that with the Hydra coming through, the Titanic Hydra coming through for the health on it. So also really nice from the side of Princeton right now. They're running the triple TP in both the top, mid, and ADC positions, so they can play a lot more spread in 1-3-1 style across the map, and it puts pressure everywhere, so you can split this team apart all the way across the map to make sure they can't group and cluster to try to take a quick Baron, even though they don't have that much damage. So that's a really important factor you got to keep your eye on as well.
Yeah, and Princeton has one dragon until they hit Soul Point, where they will definitely put a bigger focus on the dragon than they already have. But my question is here, for Stanford, do you fight over this third dragon, or do you let it go and then try and scale up and get the fourth fight here to prevent them from getting the Soul? Or do you try and take an early fight, see if you can go man-to-man with them in a better team fight than last time, because right now you gotta find a way to stop the bleeding. You're not bleeding too bad, but you are losing in this game, and the objectives are not going your way.
I think the best opportunity they've got is they need to push a boarding faster, and they have to try to take an engagement before a dragon comes up or a baron comes up for the opposite team. If they're able to get burst damage, a good shocking orb from the Xerath into the rest of the combo coming through onto 1-2 members, especially if it's both Bokipo, if it's Alex Zips, or if it's even Deathlock or Yangshek, then they're able to take out a fair amount of the team fighting through this. You don't really want to do it onto Danyu because he's not all that important for the team fighting. But everybody else able to be taken out would be big for their ability to take a fight when you have a 5v4. Now, that's a much more accessible way. So in my mind, you got to have the vision in the river, and you have to be set up to defend that vision as well.
Yeah, Anadonis taking a big amount of trade there. The True Shot Barrage is going to land that wonderful invisible ability for the spectators, as they do see it in game, at least. But a lot of damage being put down onto Anadonis. Not going to be taken down, but this could be his tower. Yachenk goes in with the Spirit Rush. Alex dips as well with the Zenith Blade. He's right into the bullet time. Has to go gold. Depth Charge is going to land, but not enough, as it's going to be Alex Dips who goes down. Toxicity looking to continue. It dodges the charm, flashes forward. He wants the plays. He's going to go down from the Cataclysm. That's going to land perfectly and trap his ADC as well, as that is going to be Carlton Danks running away. Bopo Kipo and the combo of Yachenk just putting up stars.
And that fight never goes your way if you're on the side of Stanford. It was really close to Toxicity getting onto an Ezreal, but I'm going to point out to you, this is a Trundle chasing an Ezreal. How are you going to catch him if your flash is down and if he still has flash as well? He has too much spacing available to him, especially when you've got something like a Glacial Augment or when you've got something like the Leona around. It wasn't for that fight, but it was too far gone, and now...
TP coming in, the Dredge line is going to land as well. Saksu is going to go over there, but is the Baron buff picked up by Bopo Kipo. They take down Carlton Danks, who was just trying to get in the pit, as that is going to be a ton of damage. Alex Dips decides not to go in onto Anadonis, as they're going to get the reset with the Baron buff here.
That they will. Should be able to use it to push out mid and bottom lane to set up this dragon here, so they get a third Mountain Drake. They can push this advantage to try to break the towers. In this case, in some cases, I would advocate to try to push really far, try to break the base as best as possible and accelerate the game. But right now, you've got the superior team fight. You've got everything you need. You have a gold advantage. Use it to break the outer towers. You don't need to break the base yet. Use it to get this dragon, force a fight around the Mountain Soul, and that should be more than enough to help you win the game.
Yeah, meanwhile, Danyu walking straight into the bush that held Toxicity. They are not able to burn him down, though, as the dragon is going to be started up here by Princeton. They've got the 5-man squad here. Everybody else from Stanford going this way, but it's going to burn down before they can even get there. So it looks like I got the answer to my question, Rebel.
No fighting, no contention right there, nothing to worry about. And I think it would have been a stretch to try to go for something like that, especially with the Baron buff up. You would definitely, if that fight gets lost, you absolutely lose at least an inhibitor, if not more, of your base together. So they instead pull back, wait. The Yerith has quite a bit of wave clear. The Misfortunes and use Ultimate has enough wave clear to work with as well. So they should be fine in that regard. Again, you don't have to fast play this if you're on the side of Princeton, though. As long as you break maybe mid-outer, or mid-inner, my apologies, and bottom-inner as well, you have yourself set up to where you can control the enemy jungle, and you can work around any objective that you want. That's the next Baron, that's the Mountain Soul coming up, and since you're the one in the lead, the one with the superior team fight, you're fine with that. That's all that you want to be able to take.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And the way they are playing this, obviously we highlighted earlier, they are trying to pull off this 1-3-1 to an extent, at least. It's, I guess, a 1-1-3. But they do have all these TPs available to them. They can TP into the fights if they need to, into the fights that they choose, which so far they have been choosing very, very well. You don't have another dragon for about 4 minutes, so I expect them to use this Baron buff as much as possible. And so far, that's exactly what they're doing.
Yeah, I like the idea of playing a soft 1-1-3 or a 1-0-4 in this case, just because you want to pull pressure away from this Fiora, who can absolutely 1v1 anyone. It's surprising because Danyu's got a 3-level lead and a massive gold advantage over the Aatrox, but he hasn't been pressing it very much for most of this later stage of the game. I'm not sure if he's just a little kind of timid to walk forward into a jungle where you know there's no pressure, but now has an idea. You saw how much damage you can do to this Aatrox.
Oh no, Saksu is going to get undertowered here. Does pop the World Ender, has the flash, but it's not going to be enough. Danyu picking that kill up, and that has been the story of game in this one, at least, Dan Yu just really able to push his weight around in the top lane.
That he is. Again, all that early advantage into the Aatrox led to a more than easy enough laning phase. And now, they didn't even need to break the base, but they end up getting the inhibitor tower and the inhibitor combination. They've broken both of these inner towers, exactly what I wanted them to get to be able to push this advantage a little further. And now, the Baron buff, Mountain Soul, all absolutely within their grasp. They lost their Baron buff right here, but that was more than enough that they needed to. That's the success that I want to see this team have, and Princeton's coming out again. I thought that Stanford was going to be one of our top contenders, but Princeton's making me look like a fool right now.
I know. I mean, we had all these expectations, especially around toxicity. And yes, he has been trying to make these insane plays, sometimes a little bit overeager, but has been there to try and make, at least jumpstart his team. And it just hasn't worked out. It's 26-16, a big lead for Princeton. It is Dragon Soul point as well. They've got to try and stop that from being taken, at least the next time around. It's going to be up in about 2 minutes or so. As you saw there, they tried to catch out Dan Yu, but not able to. He's got too many quick movement abilities and too fast of feet.
Yeah. Now, the one thing I will point out is that the Mountain Soul in this particular game, you've got Misfortune, who does good burst damage, and the Xerath obviously is good burst damage, so that Mountain Soul is bad against it. But you have pretty consistent burst damage through them. Like, the low cooldowns on Xerath, Misfortune's auto attacks do quite a bit. You've got, like, Aatrox and Trundle, who both, they get their abilities up pretty fast. So, like, the Mountain Soul isn't just a complete death blow. It is a massive team fighting tool. That, again, you don't want to give it over if you don't have to, but I would not lose the game and lose a fight that cost you your base over the Mountain Soul in this one. Now, if this is Infernal Soul, you never win a fight again. You have to fight at a time. But a Mountain Soul in this case, I don't think is just a knife to the heart right now. I really don't. So if they can't get the perfect engagement, they can't get a pick beforehand, they can't get into their jungle safely without potentially getting engaged on, I would let it go. Fight for the Baron, fight for the rest of the game, use this massive wave clear on Xerath to keep them out of your base as long as you can. I know it seems like rolling over, but it might be a better alternative to losing a fight and losing the game off the back.
I completely agree, and you do need to be careful on where you step out of the area, I guess, in your comfort zone, because your base is pretty much all you got, the inner parts of your base, and don't really want to overextend yourself out into the jungle where you have no vision, really. As you see, they are trying to work on that vision a little bit now, but more towards the top side of the map, so not even really focusing the dragon. But that is going to be Dan Yu trying to get a pick off. That's going to be going golden, as Bullet Time's going to follow through as well. Depth charge, they're using everything. They got to try and get Dan Yu. Now it's going to be the re-engage, though. Might not be a fight you want to take. Cataclysm coming down. That's going to be Toxicity going down as well. Huge AoE damage coming through, though. Saksu, it will do so much for his team. Phoenix in there as well, but it doesn't matter. It's been Deathblock the whole time. Yachink on a killing spree, but Deathblock is the true MVP of these team fights every single time.
From the early laning phase, I didn't expect a ridiculous amount from Deathlock and Alex Stips. They had what should have been a respectably losing lane just because of the fact that, again, they had the Leona, but they don't have the combination of champions to win the laning phase outright with the Ezreal. But his play towards the end was unreal.
Yeah, it really was, and it's just absolutely nuts how crazy that game ended up getting. 9-0 and 15 on the Ezreal, just really showing up. And honestly, was not expecting, as you had kind of pointed out, that Deathlock was going to be this carry. He was playing the Ezreal with the Leona. We thought that the Misfortune with the Nautilus was going to be a lot stronger of a duo in the bot lane, but it turns out it was Deathlock and Alex Dips the entire time.
That's correct. Yeah, the Ezreal just looks so good. It was hard to get onto. The damage is difficult to access onto such a mobile ADC, and his ability to get onto the first two items without being pressured whatsoever bought them more than enough space to work with in that other thing. I do want to make mention Colombia did win in that game on stream number 2 as well, so they take game number 1 of this first play-in stage.
Yeah, Princeton coming out on top over Stanford for this first game, at least on this stream, but we are going to cut to a little break while we get ready for game number 2, which is going to be Stanford versus MIT. So we're going to have to see if Stanford can come back after that tough loss. We are going to be showing off a little bit of the donations and everything going on with that during the break, so make sure you tune in and check that out. We'll be right back.